this is a very, very interactive program where we get to talk to you and you get to talk to us on various platforms. You can watch us live right now on Facebook at Ogtv and YouTube at Ogtv Abeokuta. Now drop your comments and we would have the conversation going on even as you are watching us right now. And last week we gave out our question for the day, and we have a winner on our question for the day last week. His name is Ganiu Ishola Oseni, and the gift is ready. The gift is courtesy Prince Engineer Yemisi Shilon, FNSE. And please, if you are Ganiu Ishola Oseni, you got our question last week, just call on this number that will be given up to you and you'll be able to get your gift immediately. 0703 161 1497. 0703 161 1497. Now, our question for the day is, what is the purest form of iron? What is the purest form of iron? So if you are calling, please call in. If you know the answer, just call us. And if you do know the answer, you can get us on Facebook, drop your answers there. On YouTube, drop your answers there, and we'll continue the conversation. But let me go on a very short break. I have my guest in the house. Let me go on a very short break, and after this break, I will let you know who my guest is. Welcome back. The program is still Engineering and You, and my guest is Engineer Babatunde Odunlami. It's a game of Tundes today. And my guest is a seasoned civil engineer with experience both in academic and profession. He lectured with the Federal Polytechnic, Ilaro, possesses several degrees and certificates. He has also been the head of series of departments and ministries of Ogun State. Some of the offices he held included the head of Local Government Administration, HOGA, Director of Local Government Service Commission, and many others. He is a fellow of Nigerian Society of Engineers, associate member of American Society of Automobile Engineers, and licensed by Koren as a professional engineer. He has traveled far and wide in this field and is a caring husband and a very loving father. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome Engineer Babatunde Odunlami. Welcome to Engineering and You today, sir.
Good evening, viewers at home, both young and old. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, Engineering and You is a program where we try to make young Nigerians to love to study sciences or engineering. So, but let me start like this. How was your own journey like? How was your choice? Why did you go into the science class? Why not commercial arts? Why science?
Thank you very much, Babatunde. Like you said, it's a game of Babatunde today, so yes. It's a pleasure to be here. Viewers at home, especially the young ones, I went to Comprehensive High School, Ayetoro. And in Ayetoro, I think Ayetoro was the precursor to this 6334. Because that time we were spending 5 years, forms 1 to 5. But in your forms 1 and 2, you will do all subjects ranging from arts, science, technical drawing, and what have you, commercial. And there will be a guidance counselor somewhere looking at your grades between those two formative years. So When you're going to go to Form 3, the guidance counselor will have looked at your performances in areas that he feels you have competence in. For example, if I was good in the technical aspect, so when I saw my result, it was promoted to technical class. I was promoted to 3CW then. And so in the technical class, we now had, you have the option of doing automotive mechanics with all the gadgets, because the school was founded by Ford Foundation. They came from America to found the school. So the most modern equipment, even at that time, was present in our school. Then you could do metal work, you could do woodwork, you could do electronics. So those were the areas. But one thing that binds all of us together is that we do technical drawing. Because you know, in engineering, the language we use to speak, to communicate, is technical drawing. If you are a German engineer, of course, you may not be able to converse with me in English, but I can draw something for you that you say, oh, yes, 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 yes. Or you say it in your language. If you're a Frenchman, you say, oui, 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 oui. So that has been the journey when I was in secondary school. So to your question, the guidance counselor saw where I had competence and put me in a technical class, and ditto for all the others who were in the sciences, who are doctors today, who are lawyers today, and who are accountants and so on. They were in the commercial classes while we were in the technical class. In my class, there were no females.
So, would you advocate for the return of guidance counselors to our schools today to help guide our children in the right direction?
I think it is very, very essential, because sometimes the parents can become emotional. Like, I'm an engineer. I may want my child to be an engineer for sake of, if I have a company and I want him to, and the child may not be good in the aspect that I want him or her to go. But the guidance counselor is dispassionate. He will look at the things he or she is supposed to look at concerning that child, and he will be able to guide the parents. It now depends on the parent to now accept whether this child that are put in technical class should go to a technical class. We had cases like that, where the father says, no, he's not doing technical, I want him to be a medical doctor. And of course, the school will have to accede to the demand of such insistent parents.
All right, our topic for discussion today is the role of civil engineer in nation building, and that's what I'll be talking about with my guests today. But if you have an answer to my question of the day, just call us. But you can't answer my question until you have asked my guest a question. So because you have to be interactive. So a civil engineer, what do you do in society?
Thank you very much, Tunde. The job of civil engineers, and let me even say it, of engineers, is there for all to see. When you are coming here today, you apply to this road. Civil engineers build roads, bridges, all these flyovers you see in Abeokuta. They are the works of civil engineers. Those total buildings were designed and built by civil engineers. Dams, even some things that some people do. You see the traffic, when you see the traffic light, those sequence, the timing sequence for the red to come on, blue and amber, they are designed by civil engineers. There is an aspect of civil engineering called traffic engineering, where you will design those sequences. The tall pylons, P-Y-L-O-N, for all this transmission of electrical power is designed by all these towers that you see for all these networks, MTN and so on. They must be designed by civil engineer. So many other things, waterways, railways, airports, canals, channels, and so on and so forth. My colleagues in engineering know that civil engineering is the mother of all engineering.
You're going to stir up a debate in that.
There's no controversy about that.
Okay, but what is the difference between civil engineering and structural engineering?
The civil engineering is the macro, while structural engineering comes under civil. Okay, under civil engineering, you have transportation engineering, you have railways, you have structural, you have geotechnics. Those ones deal with foundations and so on and so forth. So you have water resources engineering under civil. So structural engineer, I'm a structural engineer. After graduating with bachelor's in civil, at the 400 or at the final level, you generalize. But as time goes on, when you come to the master's level, I did structural engineering from Unilag. So it's still under civil engineering, it's part of it.
Okay, you're a practicing engineer. Now, I want to ask, pertaining to this country, Nigeria, do we really have everybody specializing in their field? Because we discover that even anybody can just take a work and do the work of a civil engineer. A structural engineer can do, an architect can do the work of a civil engineer, or claim to do the work of a civil engineer. Do we have them specified?
Yes, I think it is a malaise that has to be corrected. Sometimes you will be in your home, and when somebody knocks, maybe it's your mechanic, and you say, who is there? You say, engineer. You see, while we have regulators like Council for the Regulation of Engineering, it's actually against the law for you to call yourself an engineer when you are not registered. When you are being given current certificate, on that certificate it will be written that now, after certification and everything, that you can now use that title, ENGR, before your name. That is, you are now recognized to practice engineering. But what do we have in the society? You see charlatans, they will come. Because they know Mr. A or Mr. B, they get jobs that they are not supposed to get. I'm sure regulations are coming on, and that's why current is there. We have engineering regulation and monitoring. Within current, they are all over the federation. Whenever you see this type of practices going on, people who are not engineers calling themselves engineers and so on and so forth. So it's there, and it's always amazes me that these are the people that actually get contracts, because what you discover is that people want cheap things at the risk of having collapsed structures. And when the charlatans come, when the people who are not engineers come, or they will tell you, no, forget it, that man is trying to waste your money. Whereas an engineer will tell you the proper thing about that structure. But they will say, no, in this, when we did it for Mr. A, this is the way we did it. Forgetting that there are so many parameters that goes into the design of any structure.
Okay, sorry to cut you short. We have Olufemi calling from Owode. Olufemi, good evening. Hello, Femi. All right, let's continue. I think there's something wrong with the line. You can continue to your...
So you see all manners of people. Your bricklayer will say he's an engineer, and architects too. Architects too call themselves engineers. Let me quickly clarify.
I would like to do that. The role of an architect.
Yes, the architect is not an engineer. He has his role. He is the interface between the client and the building team. They are the leader of the building team, because they are the one that gets into contact. If you want to build a house now, you call your architect. Look, I have this notion of a house. I want the house on a broomstick. I want it to be like a hut, but just let it be on a broomstick or a column. So the architect will draw it. It's like having a cloth or this our body without bones. So it just produces a fantastic drawing that will look aesthetically fine, pleasing. But he knows that he dare not.
Sorry, Shegun from Abeokuta. Shegun, good evening. Hello, Shegun, can you hear us? Okay, let's continue.
So he knows he cannot go ahead with such a building unless he brings it to a civil engineer who will now put the bones in the structure for the structure to be stable, to be able to stand the test of time. In case of earthquakes, the civil engineer will design against earthquakes in places where there are earthquakes, against wind, against load. Sometimes you have buildings collapsing, maybe as a result of loading and all of that. So there are several things that the civil engineer takes into consideration. It takes practicality, cost, regulation, and safety into consideration when designing any building.
Okay, I would like to ask, for every young engineer that is watching us, they would like to know, okay, if I choose to be a civil engineer and I graduate as an engineer, qualify as an engineer, will I get a job? What is the prospect?
Fantastic. As a civil engineer, your job is everywhere. Even I want to assure you that once you get into the university, if you are the serious type, you start getting jobs. Let me explain. Your uncle wants to build a house. He knows you are already in the process. And I want to assure you that what engineering gives you is roots and wings. The roots, based on the scientific knowledge that you are going to get from your knowledge takes deep root, not tap root. And once your knowledge takes root and you develop wings, then you can fly. So, for example, someone who is in part 1, if he's very good, he can start helping his uncle on that site. So the question of not getting job doesn't come in. You don't have to wait for any white collar job to be able to start working. Then when you advance, once you have knowledge about design of structures, I have some students when I was in Federal Polytechnic that get jobs from outside. They are still in school, but because they are very knowledgeable about design of structures, these architects that I've mentioned that I mentioned before, they bring them jobs, they draw their fantasy, give it to them. So the guy is able to combine the two, even while he's in school. So the question of job, I want to assure our listeners, especially the young ones, that the job of civil engineers is everywhere. Is it in road? You even not only talking about getting money. You see the things you are being taught practically done, and you can now apply all the things you have learned in the classroom.
Okay, sorry, we have Femi calling us from Obafemi Owode. Femi, how are you doing? Hello, Femi. All right, I think we have some little challenges with our phone lines, but the conversation is getting interesting on our social media platforms. We have so many comments coming in. So if you can't get us right now through the phone lines, just go to Facebook at Ogtv and YouTube at Ogtv Abeokuta. Then you'll be able to give us answers to all our questions and join the very, very interesting comments and very interesting conversations going on right there. So as we round off today, so I want to ask, lastly, are there any job hazards pertaining to civil engineering?
Even this is your job, you have job hazard. There are hazards everywhere. So I won't scare the young ones because everywhere there are job hazards. Even drinking too much water, there is job hazard. But of course, there are job hazards when you go onto the field. We have heard of engineers drowning, falling into deep sea when they are offshore. We've heard of building collapsing and killing people on site. So there are hazards everywhere, but that is not to say that civil engineering gives you that route, that deep route, that makes you develop wings to soar. And lastly, before you go, let me tell my young audience that in this life, stones will be thrown at you from all angles, even as you are thrown soon. But engineering gives you that ability to now, it depends on what you now use those stones thrown at you. It can be challenges, it can be this, it can be that. So engineering gives you the knowledge of what to do. It's either you build a wall and surround yourself in, or you build bridges, which is what engineering is all about.
All right, engineering is all about building bridges. And before we go, our time is up. So before we go, I'd like to give you the question for the week. And then the question for the week is, on what principle is hydrogen bomb based? On what principle is hydrogen bomb based? So this conversation is continuing after now. Don't keep it going. On Facebook is at Ogtv, and on YouTube is at Ogtv. Now, for our question on Facebook, I told you the conversation is getting really interesting. Daniel Oladipupo Olaniyo got our question on Facebook. So Daniel, if you are, I know you are watching us, definitely. Just call this number and get your gift, 0703 161 1497. Again, 0703 161 1497. The gift is courtesy Prince Engineer Yemisi Shilon, FNSE. Thank you so much for watching us on this week's edition of the program. Next week is another time. Until then, my name is Tunde Olaniro saying bye-bye.